If you were to interview your own brain, you would find it a conservative negotiator. The mind seeks to minimize energy expenditure and to reduce surprise. That's not moral failing, it's architecture. From this perspective, avoidance is not a failing in character, but a predictable output from a system wired for survival. The challenge is to reframe avoidance as predictable, understandable, okay, and therefore solvable. Avoidance operates at multiple scales. There is the immediate reflex. When confronted with shame or anxiety, the limbic system signals retreat. There is the intermediate habits form that make retreat more likely in the future. And there is the long-term identity frameworks that legitimize avoidance as a coherent self-story. Each layer feeds the other. Once avoidance becomes identity, it acquires an aesthetic. Your story justifies your inertia. You are not lazy. You are practical. You are not fearful. You are realistic. These narratives feel true and thus resilient. Understanding the mechanics is empowering because it allows us to design countermeasures. The first countermeasure is a concept I call pre-commitment friction. If you make a decision to act that is hard to reverse, you leverage future inertia for growth. For example, if you commit publicly to a project, you create social costs for backing out. If you place financial stakes on a goal, you create material consequences. The brain will often prefer to accept the immediate costs than to endure social shame later. Use that structure strategically. A second countermeasure is temporal re-anchoring. The mind privileges near-term rewards. Your job is to make long-term rewards feel more immediate. Visual techniques help. Write a letter from your future self, describing gratitude for a choice you can make now. Record a short video of your future self thanking you. Use micro-rewards that accelerate the feedback loop for disciplined behavior. When the long arc is represented vividly in the present, avoidance weakens its hold. Third, practice graded exposure. Avoidance thrives in contexts where the unknown is overwhelming. Break down the feared act into micro-steps. If confrontation terrifies you, start with an email that expresses a minor truth. If performance anxiety haunts you, begin speaking in a small, supportive group. Each micro-exposure demystifies the fear and weakens avoidance through habituation. The brain updates its predictions. The catastrophe it anticipated does not occur. Its predictions are ECALIBRATE. Use curiosity as a lever. Avoidance is built on a fortress of assumption. Curiosity eats at mortar. Replace moral judgments with investigative questions. What exactly happens when I speak the truth? What is the smallest test I can run? This shifts the conversation from avoidance to experiment. Experimentation lowers stakes and reframes risk as data collection, not existential verdict. Fifth, cultivate accountability relationships that mirror growth rather than simply congratulate safety. If your peer group values comfort, you will too. Surround yourself with people who model incremental courage. Community is the social engine that either compounds avoidance or multiplies courage. Choose wisely. Lastly, be compassionate and patient. Neural rewiring takes time. The machinery of avoidance is entrenched because it served purposes. Do not expect instant heroism. Expect steady, visible progress. Measure it. Track small exposures, small obligations met, small habits formed. The ledger of incremental successes becomes proof for your skeptical brain. Avoidance, Dan, is not a moral indictment. It is a technical problem with technical solutions. When you treat it as a design challenge rather than a character flaw, you create a pathway out. The mind will always prefer ease. Your job is to make becoming easier than remaining the same. Understand your avoidance. Design the scaffolds that make growth the path of least resistance. Imagine a ledger where every small concession to ease is logged. A skipped practice, a postponed apology, a soft compromise for the sake of convenience. Each entry seems trivial, but time tallies them relentlessly. The tragedy of comfort is not dramatic collapse. It is attrition. The loss is not headline worthy. It is the disappearance of possibilities, of capacities that were never fully tested. The mathematics of potential is simple. Capability grows with use. A skill unused atrophies. Confidence unused diminishes. Relationships not invested in cool into superficiality. The human mind is not unlike a muscle. It grows by stress and rest, not through uninterrupted ease. When you choose comfort repeatedly, your muscles of courage, curiosity, and craft aren't exercised. They then consider small domain examples. A musician who plays only the easy repertoire loses the capacity to perform hard pieces. An entrepreneur who avoids rejection never learns to extract value from failure. A father who chooses convenience over difficult conversations misses the opportunity to build emotional depth with his children. The losses are silently catastrophic because they compound invisibly over time. This cumulative cost is also psychological. When you habitually avoid friction, your tolerance for difficulty drops. The mind interprets life through a narrowed bandwidth. If normal days become cushioned, then actual challenge feels intolerable. You become fragile. The future that required stamina becomes inaccessible because capacity has been surrendered in small installments. Loss of potential affects identity too. When you habitually decline invitations to grow, you eventually narrate yourself as someone who doesn't do difficult things. Identity crystallizes around avoidance and becomes prescriptive. You do not try because I am not that kind of person. This self-fulfilling identity traps you further. The remedy, therefore, must operate on habit and narrative. Small, daily practices are the antidote. Choose micro-habits that pay compound dividends. Read 15 pages nightly. Practice a craft for 20 minutes daily. Say the hard sentence each week. These are not heroic. They are persistent. The compound math is merciless in favor of continued effort. A page a day yields thousands of pages yearly. Minutes compound into months of deliberate practice. Record keeping matters. Humans underestimate accumulated change. Keep a simple journal of small, disciplined acts. When doubt arises, you can review the ledger and remember that competence is being built. This visible trail counters the alien voice that claims you haven't changed. Change is incremental and sometimes stealthy. Evidence keeps faith alive. Finally, reframe the cost of small concessions as moral rather than merely practical. It is one thing to miss a workout, another to consider yourself the type of person who cannot be relied upon to keep promises to yourself. The second interpretation touches identity. Guard identity as fiercely as you guard time, because identity creates behavior, and behavior creates destiny. Small deaths of potential are reversible if you act early and deliberately. Once erosion becomes structural, repair takes longer but remains possible. The courageous move is to begin now, to replace each small concession with a tiny act of investment, and to watch the future you assemble itself out of those choices. Stop treating tiny concessions as harmless. Each one is a withdrawal from a future you may never be able to recover without deliberate repayment. Growth is not a smooth accretion. It is a process of breakage and repair. When you choose to leave comfort, you initiate a rupture. Old habits fracture, relationships wobble, and identity trembles. This pain is not gratuitous. It is the sound of rearrangement. Think of it as a surgical intervention. The incision is necessary for deeper healing. But make no mistake, the incision hurts. The first pain is existential. Comfort has woven you into routines, social expectations, and to self-image. When you disrupt those, a part of the world you knew disappears. People who once fit into your life now strain against your new rhythm. Some will praise, others will resist. The loss may feel like betrayal or loneliness. Expect grief, name it. Grief is an honest currency for the life you leave behind, and an altar for the life you are building. The second pain is practical. New practices require nervous system adaptation. You will feel awkward and incompetent. The beginning stages of any skill look pathetic compared to polished mastery. This stage is treacherous because it tempts you to return to comfort where you felt adequate. Remember, competence requires motion through the ugly middle. The ugly middle is where the muscle grows. Resistance, there is a sign of constructive change, not failure. The third pain is relational. People orient two predictable versions of you. When you alter yourself, relationships must renegotiate boundaries and roles. Some relationships will die. Others will deepen. This natural culling is painful but necessary. Do not mistake the loss of compatibility for moral failure. Sometimes growth exposes that certain relationships were sustained by your smallness rather than mutual flourishing. The fourth pain is internal friction. Your old narratives will protest. The inner critic will magnify small setbacks and minimize progress. Expect sabotage. This is when repair and ritual matter. Keep practices that stabilize you. Timed reflection, physical discipline, community, and explicit commitments to incremental progress. How to endure this pain with strategy. First, ritualize the threshold moments. Mark them with ceremonies that acknowledge the death of an old habit and the inauguration of a new practice. Ritual gives meaning to pain and repositions it as initiation rather than mere discomfort. Second, buffer changes with support structures. Prepare others for change by explaining intentions, inviting them into your process, and offering timelines. Social literacy reduces collateral rupture. Third, maintain micro-successes to sustain morale. Tiny wins, an hour of focused work, an honest conversation, a completed practice session accumulate into a sense of forward motion that quiets the inner saboteur. Fourth, practice compassionate steadiness. Pain is a teacher. Let it instruct rather than immobilize. Recognize that the discomfort means you are now in the field where real change occurs. Celebrate the evidence of adaptation even as you honor grief and fatigue. Lastly, hold the telos vividly. The person you are becoming is the balm for the transient pain. Keep that future self present through concrete images, letters, or recordings. Let the voice of that future self console you during the transitional nights when comfort's whisper seems loudest. Endure the necessary breakage with intention. The pain of transition is the scaffolding for a life that matches the courage to build it. If transition is painful but necessary, then strategy is essential. You need to design rupture so it is survivable and generative, not reckless. Designing rupture is the art of engineering manageable, repeatable challenges that expand your capacity while preserving core safety nets. Begin with experiments, not declarations. Instead of resolving to change everything, propose a 6-week experiment with clearly defined metrics. An experiment reduces moral stakes and converts fear into curiosity. It is easier to try a thing temporarily than to commit permanently on day one. Experiments are also reversible. If the design fails, you have data rather than indictment. Second, use graduated exposure. This clinical technique from psychology has everyday power. Identify your edge and step toward it in tiny increments. If public speaking terrifies you, practice a 1-minute talk to a trusted micro-audience, then increase scope gradually. Each controlled exposure rewires predictive fear loops and replaces imagined catastrophe with calibrated evidence. Third, build structural accountability. Public commitments and deadlines make avoidance costly. Enlist mentors, set up small groups that hold each other, and publish micro-obligations. Social friction, when applied, kindly becomes the engine of consistency. The market also helps. Prepay for a course, buy non-refundable tickets, or use financial stakes that motivate, follow, dash through. Fourth, create ritualized recovery. Growth requires strain and rest. When you design rupture, design restorative practices too. Scheduled rest days, community rituals, and micro rewards. This prevents burnout and makes risk sustainable over longer arcs. Fifth, plan for relational transitions. When you change, others will react. Communicate proactively. Say, I'm trying an intensive month of study. I might be less available. Be clear that the rupture is chosen, not abandonment. Invite allies to join smaller parts of the process, so change is less threatening to collective rhythms. Sixth, use narrative scaffolding. Frame rupture as practice, not moral correction. Say, I'm experimenting with discipline, instead of, I was weak, and now I will fix it. Narrative tone shapes internal response. Practice-framed rupture invites iteration rather than moral collapse. Seventh, quantify progress. Small changes can feel invisible. Track inputs, minutes of practice, words written, calls completed. Concrete metrics anchor subjective impressions and motivate persistence. Finally, embrace redundancy of supports. Don't place all change on a single pillar. Combine habit formation, social accountability, financial stakes, mentorship, and ritual. When one support falters, others hold the system. This redundancy makes ambitious change resilient. Designing rupture is the craft of courageous engineering. It is not heroism, it is prudence. The brave person designs bravery into systems so that courage becomes habitual and growth predictable. Build your own safe storms-engineered brakes that stretch you without shattering you. Found, and watch courage become a daily practice, not a rare event. You will know you have left the comfort trap when ease no longer feels like salvation, but like a neutral state you can use or reject as appropriate on the other side of intentional rupture. Life changes in three profound ways. Competence deepens, agency clarifies, and meaning intensifies. Competence deepens because you practiced under stress. Skills grow when you strain them against difficulty. They become resilient, reliable, and eventually forgiving. This competence is not only technical, it is moral. You become someone who can keep promises to yourself. That self-trust is itself a capability that multiplies outcomes across relationships, work, and creativity. Agency clarifies because your choices widen. When comfort no longer defines the horizon, options expand. You no longer see your life as a limited set of predictable paths. You see plasticity. With practiced risk, decision-making becomes more courageous and more refined. You act from principle rather than panic. You choose projects that align with telos rather than immediate applause. This interior clarity has immediate external consequence. Employers, lovers, and collaborators notice someone who holds steady, and opportunities follow. Meaning intensifies. Comfort flattens experience into predictable cycles. Rupture charges life with stakes. When you elect to grow, your days accumulate narrative weight. Even small acts feel charged because they are oriented toward a life you yourself authored. Meaning is not a rare mystic experience. It is the byproduct of sustained alignment between daily acts and long-term vision. The person who has paid the price of rupture feels the quality of life deepen. Conversations have gravity. Work has taste, and presence becomes a practice rather than a pastime. Relationships change too. Some fall away as compatibility shifts. Others deepen. People are drawn to authenticity and endurance. The relationships that survive this crucible are those that can hold complexity and mutual growth. You will find new alliances that value courage and craft, and you will be less tolerant of relationships that demand your smallness as a price for belonging. Economy can time management alter as well. The freed person learns to allocate attention like capital. Minutes are invested more strategically. The compound returns of consistent practice show up not just as better outcomes, but as more time, more freedom, and more options. The future you has purchasing power because you paid with discipline earlier. The emotional texture of life also changes. Where once you may have felt anxiety masked as boredom, you now feel engagement mixed with the humility of ongoing work. Pleasure becomes sweeter because it is earned, and rest becomes restorative because it follows real exertion. You no longer confuse ease with value. You value things that require you. Finally, there is a moral inheritance to this transformation. By choosing rupture, you become a model. Your small acts of courage influence others more than any speech. The community around you subtly shifts as others learn that change is possible and practical. Legacy begins as simple demonstrations: a repaired relationship, a visible craft, a practiced discipline. Those demonstrations create permission for others to break as well. The enemy of comfort recedes not by grand disdain, but by steady practice. Choose the life that asks more of you, and you will receive more. The quiet self that once hid behind ease will become a person of depth and agency, someone whose presence changes the room, not by volume, but by gravity. Do not mistake quiet safety for real living. Step into designed rupture and build a life your future self will not only survive, but deeply thank you for.